his game just overall?
Like Superman. It's pretty spectacular.
Wealth of
Cam gives a real analysis. Bigben's like Superman. Superman's quit asking me about it. So.
It worked the first time, so I'm going to say it twice. Coach, who do you think has the edge in this quarterback matchup between Roethlisberger and Cam Newton?
Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of Ben Roethlisberger, and playing against him year after year, there's a resilience to him, and every year we start talking about how the Steelers are. It's a little bit like the Patriots. It's a different take on it, but the Steelers are done, Ben's done, and then suddenly they hit 4 in a row, 5 in a row, 6 in a row, and the difficulty with coaching against him is the broken plays become big plays, and he doesn't get enough credit for the way that he's able to generate plays down the field when he moves around the pocket. It's such a huge part of being able to stop them is if you can keep him in the pocket. Now, he provides some opportunities for multiple sacks because of it, but it's dealing with his resilience, to me, gives the edge, where I think Cam, when he gets going and when it's going well, it really goes well. Mm-hmm. Now, when it's not going very well, it's not consistent whether or not he's going to climb out of that hole or whether it's going to keep going bad. So I give the edge to Ben just because of the resilience factor.
But is it what you're saying about when it's not going well for Cam? We've seen that with Ben too, right? Like that's why he has the 6 interception game. That's why there have been games for Big Ben where he does let go of the rope. Where
there are games that Ben, like all the good quarterbacks, but Ben has been more consistent than Cam as far as when I'm high and when I'm low. Now, Ben, if he start going bad, Ben's going down with the boat. Now, I'm going down throwing it. I'm not going to be conservative. That's just been his personality. But when you talk about consistency as a passer, I would say there's no comparison to who Ben Roethlisberger is. There's no pass on the field that he can't throw. There is no arc on the ball that he can't make. So he is surgeon-like as far as a quarterback. He can sit there like Drew Brees, or he can rough it up, muck it up like he did last week against Baltimore, where his numbers weren't great, but the intangibles got knocked out of the game and be able to come back, and that ability to be able to scramble and make that defense keep covering, that's one of the things that makes him really, really special.
And when you pick Ben off, or when you sack Ben, or when you force a fumble, you know that he goes to the sideline, he may be frustrated, and you may be able to get another one, but he's coming out with the same mentality the next time. There's no concern about him making a mistake the next time. He's going to attack you. He's going to take some calculated risks. Where with Cam, I don't know if it's always that same approach. It seems like he's doing a better job getting through adversity this year and as he gets older, but it can steamroll a little bit drive to drive with him.
Listen, I think prior to this year that the book on Cam Newton was the hot and cold, the peaks and valleys. We know that. We talked about that a ton last year. I also think now, as Cam's in year 8, if we look at his career in its totality, what he's accomplished in Carolina has become, I think, at this point, relatively underrated. He gets there as the number 1 pick because they're 2-14. By year 3, they have a bye in the playoffs. For 3 straight years 3, 4, and 5, they get at least the divisional round, culminating in a Super Bowl appearance. Now, year 6 was a bad year by all accounts. I don't know if it was a Super Bowl hangover, what it was. Last year, they went 11 games. He was spectacular in a playoff duel against Drew Brees that they lost. And this year, they're 6-2 with none of those Valley games for Cam Newton. So in 7 full seasons, 3 times to the divisional round, 4 times to the playoffs on a team that does not have the institutional support of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's not walking into a situation where Big Ben's rookie year, he can just be a caretaker on a 15-1 team, right? So I think that.
I think that way more than a caretaker.
No, his rookie year.
Way more than a caretaker.
Well, I think that you're not giving Ron Rivera and what they do defensively. Because Cam's got a huge advantage defensively. Actually, if you look at it, I would be willing to bet this, that the Carolina Panthers defense has been better in 8 years than the Pittsburgh Steelers defense in that mystique. There ain't no steel curtain in Pittsburgh, bro.
Oh, but there was in the beginning of Ben's career. When Ben went down. No.
I'm talking about from the time
Cam came in the league.
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
I can guarantee you that there has been more stability from a defense. How many points did they have to win in those games? Just from a talent standpoint, the reason why Cam gets criticized is because his up and down trajectory and his fundamentals are not as good as the great quarterbacks. When you watch Cam, you watch those highlights, you watch his feet. And I made it a point. When I broadcast the Saints game versus the Falcons, I made sure I spent the most time with who? Drew Brees. And I asked Drew Brees, man, what is the key? I saw you in college, Drew. You were accurate with the football. How do guys get more and more accurate? He said, Chris, it's a combination of two things. The number one thing is I know where everyone is. I know the protection. I know where it can be weak. So I know where to throw the ball to in the offense quick so that I don't have a bad play. And the number one thing to throwing the ball accurate, Chris, is my feet. You have to watch throwers and watch their feet. Cam has poor footwork. Now, through this season, with North Turner, he has gotten a lot better, but I'm not going to move him to that status when I've only seen him and North Turner for this small sample size. So Cam Newton's inability to be consistent with his feet, that's why people like Mangini and myself, the commentary is harsh on Cam, and he was the number one pick in the draft.
Right.
There should be high expectation because he's got tremendous athletic and also coaching, throwing, motion, arm talent.
And I think you ding quarterbacks all the time for not winning a second Super Bowl. I mean, you're not even dinging Cam for not winning a first Super Bowl.
Hold on. First of all, what you're saying there's flatly not true. I think Super Bowls are, you're going to hate this, are a lot more random than people give them credit for. I think people assume as soon as a coach wins a Super Bowl, I said this yesterday, so a lot of coaches never won a Super Bowl that I think are great coaches. I think Ron Rivera is a great coach. And there's a handful of coaches that have won a Super Bowl that I don't know if they're a great coach. I've watched Cam Newton, and last year, or the year before last, was really disappointing. He had won an MVP. He was excellent. And in the Super Bowl, it seemed like the moment he didn't dive on that fumble, his career went south. And then last year, they went 11 games. He was spectacular in the playoff game. And this year...
But why wasn't he spectacular during the regular season?
He was good. Now, see, he was inconsistent, fundamentally throwing the football. There's no doubt about that. But when we evaluate Cam, we've talked about this before. You have to include the running stuff. You have to include what he does for that team's rushing attack. And I understand your point that he maybe hasn't lived up to the number one pick. That hype and the physical ability, but I think he gets an unfair rap. And at 6-2, he's been one of an MVP candidate this year, heading into this game against the Steelers.
Elephant in the room, who's got the better body? Probably Cam Newton. Got to take a break. Coach, stick around. Coming up, do the Cowboys need to completely overhaul their organization? All football. Next on First.